Hi, everybody. Welcome to Baker and Bloom's Designing a Meaningful Summer Talk. We will be talking about how to plan an effective, productive summer for teenagers today. We're just waiting for everyone to come in. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday afternoon, well, Saturday morning. And today we have a lot of amazing speakers joining us. We have Miss Karen Kwok, our admissions counselor, and we have Miss Mei Chen, our STEM
Hello.
program director. Yeah, and we have a panel of 3 students who will be sharing their experiences with their recent summers. Our students are seniors and heading to college this fall, and they'll be sharing what it was like to apply and set up their summers for the past few years and what they did and how that helped them with their journey to college. So I wanted to start with introducing Miss Karen Kwok a little bit more. So Karen has actually been with us for 5 years at Baker and Bloom, and she has been an admissions counselor and worked with a lot of students over the years for both boarding school admissions and college admissions. And Karen herself went to Taft School, where she did the boarding school program, and then went on to Harvard College, where she developed an interest and started to work with students on writing essays and personal statements. And that's where her journey with admissions really began. And over the years, Karen has worked with a lot of students at Baker and Bloom one-on-one and helps them get into colleges that are incredible in the US and the UK. Particularly in recent years, she's gotten her students into Harvard, RISD, NYU, Claremont McKenna, Georgia Tech, the list goes on. So I will open the floor to Karen to talk about how to design a meaningful summer. Yeah, enjoy.
Great. Thanks, Shireen. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the great introduction, Shireen. So I will actually just dive into the presentation because I know that time is quite tight. So what can you do in the summer that you can't do all year? I think summer is a really important time. I mean, like all students in Hong Kong and elsewhere, you're busy in the term with schoolwork, exams, all these different types of assignments. In summer, finally, you have 2.5 months to really get to relax and unwind a little bit. So I do want to start off by emphasizing taking time for yourself. Obviously, in light of COVID, traveling is not really an option. But in most years, I would say take the time, travel, expand your horizons. Meaningful time for yourself is really important. On top of that, doing a bit of reading, read into some of the subjects that you might be interested in that you didn't have the time. If you're preparing for your AP exams or for IB, you're really working on this prescribed syllabus. So reading outside of it, we call that supercurricular exposure. Delve into a topic. I think that's really important. Spend time, meaningful time with your family. But of course, you all know that already. So what I'm going to do is to dive into other activities that you can pursue in the summers. Next slide, please. So the types of activities that we will be talking about today would be college programs. So obviously, all universities have their summer programs. Some are more prestigious than others. So making sure that you do read into it and select the right option for you. For students that are really starting off, let's say you're in 9th grade or 10th grade, it is a time for you to really start exploring your interests. Taking a college level course, really delving in detail into specific subtopics. There are some interesting sample courses. I just listed 2 because I'm a psych major. So I do get a lot of questions about, okay, if I'm interested in psych, what can I study? So, if you're interested in, say, biology and psychology, you could look into the animal mind, the science behind it. There are lots of options for you. So, a lot of parents do ask, if I'm interested in X university and I attend X university summer program, will that give me a leg up? What I would say about that is not really. I mean, it does show that you visited the campus, and you can definitely say, it shows that you have that interest / commitment, but it wouldn't really, give you a leg up if, for example, your grades aren't there. But at the same time, there are some programs that are more prestigious than others. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Internships. So a really cool thing about internships is you really actually get to apply what you've learned. And Baker and Bloom does an internship program in partnership with Cocoon, which is an incubator for startups. And we place you aligned with your interests. If you're interested in fintech, if you're interested in social entrepreneurship, there's lots of options available for you. We also give you job related training, so resumes, professional skills, interview workshops. We do an after, well, actually, I run a post internship workshop that helps you, translate what you've done into an essay, into your activities list, your resume, and also ensure that you get a recommendation letter afterwards. Projects. So I will let Ms. May talk a bit more about that, but it's really great for you to combine your interests. And I'll talk a little bit about the contrast profile. You can design anything. There really isn't a right and wrong answer, but then it allows you, as I was saying about supercurricular, to delve into an area of interest that you may not have had the time to do during the term time. So I'm going to talk about a sample student for the next slide. So this student, he got into USC, and this is kind of a timeline. So he ended up, spending 3 summers doing very different things, and he was able to combine, to kind of write a timeline to show exactly why all the activities he did make sense to what he's interested in studying. So this student was interested in tech, entrepreneurship, sustainability. And I'll talk a little bit about the first summer, where he did a social entrepreneurship internship, a course and internship at Cocoon. And one really cool thing he did with this course was he designed an enterprise and created a video game that simulated financial situations to teach kids financial literacy. And it's a really cool way for him to combine like the internship work, his academic interests with community service, which, I think you hear a lot about, oh, you have to do something community service related. Yes, but it should, everything should all tie together. So we could move on to the next slide, just to see what I'm talking about for the first summer. And so in designing this game, like all games are in-game purchases, there are ads, there's revenues, and you took that revenue to fund financial literacy courses for local schools within Hong Kong. So in addition to that, I do want to add that the student is interested in technology. And so he started learning about coding his freshman year and decided to expand on that. So always going back, tying it back to his coursework and tying back to his academic interests. All right, next slide. So the second summer he spent at USC, kind of expanding his on his interest in technology and in engineering. Of course, this was back in the days when you can travel to California and take courses and meet with students from all around the world. But then because he's also interested in sustainability, one thing that he emphasized was the water reclamation plant and the ability to use engineering to apply it into another interest that he's interested, that he has. So That's something really important that I do want to emphasize is, I do meet a lot of students interested in engineering, and they all have the technical skills. So when we talk about the contrast profile that I'll talk about later, it is really important to combine, engineering with something you're interested in. And it could be anything. I mean, if you are, interested in literature and engineering, is there a way you could combine those interests together? So that's something that students should really reflect on, that, yes, I have an academic interest, but what would I do to combine all of that together to make myself more different from all the other engineering students with the same skill sets. The third summer is about his business experience. So he did do yet another internship. And now you can see, a lot of people ask, like, okay, is it just that I have this internship on my resume? Would that make me more impressive? It actually is about what you do. So for this student, he actually did a competitive analysis research report. So he, an internship is also a two-way street, just like most things. College is also a two-way street. There's something that the company gives you in terms of what you're learning from them, and there's what you contribute back. So if you are thinking about interning, you should think about the skill sets you have, even if you're a ninth grader and you have no job experience, because most likely you've got research skills, you're organized, can-do attitude, willing to learn, or presentation skills. There's so many things that you can do that a lot of these companies don't have time to do. So the more you can think about that you can contribute, the better. So kind of dialing back and talking a little bit about why we're here, and what the admissions landscape looks like. So this year, well, last year, starting from the class of 2021, it has been a very competitive year because of test optional. The pandemic has really upended what college admissions look like. Because students aren't visiting these schools, they just kind of throw their hat into the ring thinking, okay, if I don't have to take the SATs or the ACTs, you don't really know what my score is. So hopefully my grades or my enthusiasm can make up for it. So in terms of the admissions rate, it's mostly because the pool is flooded with a lot of applicants. So Harvard, all these top Ivy schools reject such a large number of students with perfect scores or perfect GPAs. But at the same time, you have to think about, okay, I've got these grades, I've got, some interests, but how am I going to fit into these schools? So this was last year's statistics, but for the incoming class, we don't have as many numbers, but a big one would be, for example, NYU has seen a 5% increase year over year with 105,000 applicants. So kind of drilling back, next slide, how do I stand out? Thinking about, what kind of activities you're involved in, making sure that your student is buying into this whole process too. So you can't just sign up for, parents, you can't just sign up for all these activities and say, okay, I'm going to put this on my kid's resume and I'm just going to call it a day. They have to be interested in what they're doing as well. It sounds very corporate, but then think about your application theme. And that, shows through your projects, your internships, as I had already discussed earlier. But one very common question we do get from a lot of parents is, what if I have no idea what I want to do? And how would I, how do I within like 6 months or 2 years discover what I want to major in, what I'm interested in, and tell the college, okay, this is what I want to do. Next slide, please. So this is why summer is the perfect opportunity for you to expand on these interests. The activity should be fun. So I do want to emphasize that it should be something you enjoy, you want to do. So the play and the passion, your expertise, your creativity, like all of this comes into play. You need to want to do it. You need to be excited about doing it because, we can guide you, we can be there for you, but then if it fizzles out in, after 2 sessions, then you would have wasted your own time and when you could have been doing something else. Initiative. So initiative is very important. Self-driven learning. We do encounter a lot of students who, take the summer, as I mentioned, doing a lot of reading or even reading. If you don't like to read, you could look at podcasts. You can go on YouTube channels. Like there's so much to learn. I mean, the internet does have a lot of stuff for you to find. So next slide, just kind of looking at all these activities. I'm not going to run through all of these, but, just think through, which one is more impressive. I do get a lot of questions from parents about, okay, what activity should I do? What sounds most impressive? Actually, they all are impressive in their own way because the context is what matters. What did you do? What was your role? What was your depth of participation, right? So for example, if you interned in a solicitor's firm and you just sat there and poured coffee for senior partners, it's not going to be as exciting as you started a band with your siblings and then you went out there and you performed in public spaces and you raised money for a charity that was near and dear to your heart. So it really is about how you end up doing it and how you talk about it. So next slide, kind of building on the good activities. So quickly running through the 4 tiers. The tier 4 is you're a participant, you're a team member. You could probably do a lot of these, but you don't really go deep into any of them. Like, for example, you wrote a contributing article to the school newspaper. Tier 3 is when you do lead, minor, like treasurer of the yearbook, specialty interest clubs like the anime club. Nothing against anime, but if you can spin that into another story, that would be great as well. Tier 2, major leadership roles, school-wide organization, student body president. If you have a few of these, right, like placing in a competition that's regional, that's international, placing within Math Olympiad, or within Allstate, which is, I think, within the US, a regional instrument, an orchestra and a choir. So for most of you, you'll probably be in like tier 3 and tier 2 and having a good mix of activities there, and you kind of fill it out with tier 4 activities. Tier 1 would be rare achievement. You're international level, you're winning Intel, you're in Intel, you're winning gold at the Intel engineering competitions. You're in a prestigious summer program like TASP is a Telluride Association summer program, which has a 3% admit rate. SUMAC is a summer math program, which also has a very, very low admission rate because their entrance math exam is really, really difficult and rigorous. So if you can get into those programs, it shows that you have the skills. Okay, next slide. So how do you put all your activities together? Kind of run through this really quickly. We used to be all about being well-rounded. I want to be, triple threat, sports, orchestra, debate, yearbook, doing all of these things, but I don't really have depth in any of them. So the next level up would be an expert. So you have the depth, you're really good at math, coding. I mean, this is good. If that can translate into a high tier 2 or even a tier 1 activity, that is what you have, and that would be great. The contrast profile, I think, is actually really fun because that's where you can, through your projects especially, you can combine all of these interests, right? STEM, environmental activist, runner, entrepreneur, a historian who loves art, architect who is interested in history, soccer player who likes statistics. What do you enjoy and what do you really love? So we can move on to the next slide to talk a bit about so dig deep into your own interests and don't try to impress me, because when I talk to my students, they're usually reluctant to tell me, oh, I'm interested in video games. Actually, I really like binging certain TV shows on Netflix. Okay, so you've got that interest. Yes, don't spend all your time doing that, but how do you take that and maybe you film your own mini series, or maybe you do a podcast on your own. But what matters to you and what when people talk about you at school, like, what are you known for? What is that passion that you have? Okay, I'm going to run through the last few slides, and I know I'm totally over in terms of timing, but in terms of COVID contingency plans, virtual options. So, the university programs, although the US is running back at normal speed, I would think they would still have the online options because of all the international students, especially from Asia, that they attract. So keep an eye out for that. They're great because it is synchronous learning, but then you can also partner it up during the day with an internship, test prep, do a bit more, expand on your other interests, and you're able to multitask. Internship in Hong Kong, definitely reach out and talk to us about that. Being self-motivated for sure, like teach yourself coding. I definitely have encountered a lot of students who self-study for AP exams, or if you don't want to do the AP exams, you could just teach yourself a new skill, and that would count for a lot. Locally within Hong Kong, Hong Kong U, HKU, SDCU, HK all have summer programs for secondary school students. Especially for students interested in business, it would be really helpful for you to really understand what business administration means. The last two programs are two that I've seen pop up that are really, really meaningful. I'll talk about them really quickly. Sorry, I'm totally over on time. The Children's Medical Foundation Social Impact Fellowship allows you to talk to really cool business leaders and then create a social enterprise. And you're doing fundraising, you're collaborating with students, and it's also for a good cause. So you're kind of, as I was saying, combining your community service work with your internship work. The Mother's Choice, Mother's Choice, I'm sure a lot of you volunteer there as well, but they did offer a summer internship last summer. It was oversubscribed, so highly recommend you do that. They have a lot of areas of interest that you can explore. Sorry, and I am completely over, but if you're interested in learning more, definitely schedule a meeting with me or with Miss May or anyone within the Baker and Bloom team to learn more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen, for that incredible presentation with so many practical tips for everybody to schedule, to design a beautiful summer that is enriching and gives you the opportunity to deepen your interests and explore new ones, and find those intersections of different kinds of interests and develop academically as well. Okay, so I want to open the floor to Miss May Chen. May is an incredible engineer and accomplished scientist. She has worked for many years at Microsoft, Procter & Gamble, and Lockheed Martin, and has worked in NASA space programs as well. She is known for her ability to apply her scientific knowledge in real-world situations and works closely with students as a project advisor. And yeah, I'll let May do the rest of the talking.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Serene. And couldn't agree with Karen more in that having those different levels of tiered projects are super important. So next slide. Due to time, since Serene did a great job introducing me already, I will just skip this one. Basically, it just shows that I have spent half my life as an engineer and now the other half so far as an educator. And I'm totally passionate about education to the point that my two kids are actually attending our own newly founded school at Bloom KKCA Academy. Both of my kids are there, as well as I'm still continue to be the program STEM program director here at Baker and Bloom, which is very important because I do feel that having that social community involvement is super important. And of course, also let's try and save the earth while we're at it, right? So next slide. So in terms of saving the earth, I think the thing that really stands out for Baker and Bloom is that all our student projects are innovative, and socially impactful. And I would almost say that it's like almost all. And the reason why is because regardless of you're getting coached by Karen or Renee or me or someone else, we always have this pursuit of excellence, and that is so genuine, right? It's your student passion, it's the place that we're living in, it's the things and impact that we want to make for our own lives in this time, on this earth. And so that character really stands out when you're applying. And to echo what Karen was saying, it's what shows to university application and counselors in terms of saying that, admissions counselors, and saying that this is who I am, this is where I'm from, and that's why you want me. And that genuine has to be shown in a certain way, and that's what we do best. Next slide. In here you can see that I'm highlighting one of my student, Spencer's project, and super happy that he was able to basically win his section in the city and INT Grand Challenge. And you can see that he's getting an award from Carrie Lam in here. And that is, like the pinnacle of sort of like what highlighted his success. But I want to bring you back to the next slide, where you can actually see why this was genuine. Because he actually started off with technical interest, right? He comes to me years ago with interest in technology and in engineering, and don't know what to do with it other than, I like to work with hardware, and then sometimes software, and then sometimes this, to the point where, even his Gmail account, it has the word tech in it, right? So then in order to make that into genuine story and a growth for Spencer, we started off with different small projects, such as taking apart PCs. I mean, which kid doesn't like taking apart PCs, right? And who hasn't done that in recent years? So from something very generic, but self-motivated and interest, into something that is socially responsible in terms of responding to people's needs, into project upgraded, in terms of noticing that there is communication issues between the elderly with their caretaker, and especially in the Hong Kong environment, a lot of the caretakers are domestic helpers, but then how will you communicate that into now him starting that startup on which he won the competition on, and in partnership with Cocoon, which he can go into more detail. The next slide. So following that trend, you can see how technical interest can later on grow into a project. And then in here, another student, I want to highlight a different one, completely different, that's not technical, that started off with interest in biology. That just started off with things like, bread making and making yogurt, right? And then we expanded that into a project about research in how germs and viruses spread in time of COVID-19. And then later on expanded even further to the fact that because she had to spend some of her time due to family reasons in New Zealand, she was collecting data from New Zealand supermarkets, New Zealand shopping carts, New Zealand, collecting data by what? By just simply collecting, bacteria and virus samples from there, and then growing it in a petri dish, and then comparing the results. And then now you have a completely unique project that is timely, that the result is interesting and effective, and can be published onto a website. So continue onward. So these are ways where you can actually prepare, and interestingly, as we scaffold you up from the 3, 2, 1 tiers, you can actually make that connection from being job ready to college ready to making sure that you do the right thing in secondary school, right? So next slide. So the secret sauce to making a great STEM project is highlighted in here, which Karen also mentioned a little bit. But what I want to make sure is that you do want to come into Baker and Bloom for that, free half-hour consultation with Jessica or one of us, and really just see where do you connect the dots. And I think connecting the dot is the key, because sometimes, you might not see the fact that, oh, in my previous interest in basketball, for example, in Hank's case, oh, I can actually do a project in that, and show that my personal interest can actually grow greater into a deeper project. And I think connecting the dot is the key thing in terms of our experience in helping you to see that. Okay, next slide. This is really just talking about how projects and college admissions are going through, of course, this trend of getting harder and harder, and that what used to be really good and stands out. Like I remember watching YouTube videos from MIT applicants who they were doing some kind of personality talk, and that really stood out, right? Or websites that really stood out. But for now, we really have to step up the game. To be honest, there is so many YouTube videos, there's so many websites. Now we need to bring in that real world application, that technology solution, that team-based work, that interdisciplinary, those partnerships, social impact, as you can see on the project side. So I mean, in order to make ourselves stand out as that genuine person that you are seeing in that glimpse of 1 second judgment on the college admissions counselor's desk, you need to have that. Next slide. And this is just my take in from my, NASA, Microsoft, Lockheed Martin sort of, perspective. So first, next, please click through. So the reason why I am so passionate about education, especially for STEM, is that pace of change. So technology is always the thing that will change everything the quick, fastest, right? And then market adaptation will be the next thing, because as soon as, like, for example, Facebook came out, and that is a game changer, right? And then all of a sudden you have people advertising on Facebook, people collecting data on Facebook, or Uber came out, right? So next slide, next click. Then because, for example, Uber came out, Hong Kong government has to step in and do some governance and making sure that, our taxi drivers, their license plate doesn't drop off too much. And then so the next pace of change is legislature, followed by cultural change, where people has adapted to it so much that you can't go back anymore. So even though Hong Kong government has made it illegal to do Uber, I'm sure we still do it, right? So that is a cultural change. But then what is really sad is that mostly we have education follow only after culture change, especially in large institutions. And that's why, click again, you can see that we want to make sure that your STEM project, that your portfolio, that whatever stands out brings you from that, fifth stage of change up to where technology and market adaptation is. So in order to make sure that your STEM project is genuine, it has to be situated between that market adaptation. And that's why we emphasize the partnership with Cocoon. Next slide. Here we have more student examples, but then I think we're running out of time, especially since we want to hear more from our other students. But basically, I have coached through students in getting patents, in publishing research papers, in all different ways of sort of helping them to package their portfolio in depth. And I think I hope I speak pretty clearly about that by now. And so I will give the mic back to you, Serene, to jump to the next case.
Thank you, May. It was great to hear all of the different types of STEM projects that students can do over the summer. And as both Karen and May said, it's not any one summer that defines a student's journey, but really the accumulation of all the learning they do over the years, and how you can find the perfect project to fit you and your interests and your academic inclinations.
Oh, I just want to chime in very quickly. 1 second, that actually our founder, Ms. Renee Bowie, is actually on the call too. So if you have questions, please do send it via the chat publicly, and then we will go through if there are any specific questions for any of us. So remember that in the chat, you can always log down our questions, or I mean your questions as we're speaking. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. So I wanted to start by asking a few questions that were sent in through the form that all our attendees filled out before they came on here today. So one really great question that we got is, how do you research and choose your opportunity? Despite the pandemic situation, do you think it's more valuable to spend the summer in Hong Kong or in the United States? So I'll start with Karen, if you had any thoughts on that.
So I think that in terms of researching your opportunities, definitely do this in partnership with the student, because it really is about what they're interested in. I think that even though I said that if you pick a school that you're interested in, a summer program from a school you're interested in may not be like the reason why you get into said university, be a good starting point for you to see, what courses they offer, or maybe explore like a professor that you might be interested in taking a course through if he or she is offering that course. In addition to that, I guess the whole staying in Hong Kong versus being in the US, I think it does vary based on your personal situation. I think that number of days of summer that you have available is, how would you use your quarantine time if we still have 21 days of quarantine? And it really is about multitasking a bit, because, as I was saying, since they're done in US time, you can choose the online option if you can't get away. And if that is the case, what can you do during the day that can also supplement that? You can especially if you are already in 10th or 11th grade, probably in 10th grade, you'd be doing some test prep. You can partner that up with a small internship, or you can just take the time to kind of do the self-learning that I was talking about, reading and blogging. I think reading blogs or listening to podcasts, because I think that every family's unique situation is different. You've got siblings, you've got parents who may not be able to get away. So you don't have to go to the States if your situation doesn't allow you to do that. And there are some great programs within Hong Kong. So, exploring those can really help too.
Great. So another question that we've gotten a lot in different forms is how early should we start planning for college, and by extension, what we do during the summers? Like how early, what grade level should we start thinking about these things? Should parents start talking to their kids about what to do during the summer, and also academically preparing for college?
I will take that question so that we can allow for diversity and genuine interest to come through. I think it's very important that we don't over-design things to the point where it is very obvious to admissions officers that it was designed. I think it's important that as the students are still in, let's say, middle school, that they would actually have a lot of their genuine interest to show up in their summers. And I think that, finding that connection from dot to dot, it's actually not that hard, to be honest, because I've consulted so many students, and if they have a certain passion or interest in it, let it grow. After they get to high school, there will be a way for it to be somehow integrated with technology. I mean, technology is everywhere, technology and science and engineering. There's no way that you can actually skip out of it, to be honest. I mean, even if your student, like the previous one, who there's another example I didn't highlight, who just loved playing the violin and erhu and end up designing a hybrid instrument later on, right? So like you don't, like if you overly design it in the beginning, it shows up later on. And also it tires out the students' enthusiasm and their self-choice and the motivation. And Baker and Bloom, we are talking about being a learner and a passionate learner for lifelong, right? So maintaining that motivation and that interest it's just as important as that college admission. The college admission is more of a platform to make sure that they grow in a great environment when they're in college, right? But getting there means also you have to grow as a person. So my advice is really that there is no right solution for it because it really depends on the child. But I do advise against overly design or engineer it too early. And you know, let that brainstorming creativity happen in the earlier stages before you start, you know, channeling that energy for rigor.
Thank you, May. Great advice on not overscheduling and over designing. I think that can happen sometimes, but it's important to let the students really discover and take ownership of their summers as well. So I want to open the floor to the students who have very kindly joined us, some of them from overseas. We'll start with Spencer, who has been with us for a very long time and has accomplished a lot over the last few summers. Spencer, can you tell us where you are now, where you're headed this fall, and what you've done over the last few summers?
All right, so hello, my name is Spencer Lee, and I'm currently in ISF and will be studying in UPenn next year. So I guess my summer experience with Baker and Bloom started with May in 2017. Working with May on multiple small projects made me realize that I had the ability to do anything that I really wanted. She allowed me to explore my passion as well as develop my skills in design and technology. And later on, Baker and Bloom in 2018 connected me with Kin, which is a startup that used to be under Cocoon. And it is about designing a smart pill dispensing machine for elderly people to help organize their medicine. This internship made me realize how the needs of the elderly are overlooked and inspired me to create my own project. And this is where I also began to take my journey a bit more seriously. In the summer of 2020, May and I started to design our first project, a mobile app that helps elderly communicate with their caregivers in a very simple and intuitive manner, because they may not be able to due to medical reasons like paralysis or just old age and tiredness. I used a programming app called MIT App Inventor. It's very simple computer software, and it allows people to design whatever mobile apps they want. This sort of experience taught me the importance of nuance and like details in a product and how you must cater to your audience's needs. And I also practiced my very basic design skills, logical thinking, and basic programming skills. At the end, we were able to complete a very basic prototype. However, I did want to take this further because this was my passion. In the summer of 2021, Min, which is my college counselor, and May both suggested that I recruit a team of programmers and designers to refine our app. So I went to Cocoon and I established an internship, and I recruited 15 people to work over the course of 2 weeks to complete our goal, to refine the app and to program it in a more advanced language. After we were done, Min and Trevitt, which is another coach, also suggested that I join the Hong Kong City INT Challenge, which was a competition that lasted 4 months. In this competition, Trevitt and I worked tirelessly on pitches. I think we had a total of 4, and we did end up winning first place. And this is where I believe I greatly developed my business skills, leadership skills, and pitching skills. And the way I wrote it in my application is that with such an experience, especially one that involved leadership, it was a great opportunity to show my passion, my initiative, and my commitment. So I had to make sure I focused on those aspects. And I also focused on sort of how I learned to focus and empathize with my target audience and how I was doing this to contribute back to my community, because I think that shows that you have a great awareness of your community. And I think that's a very great trait that I believe colleges want to look for. And I think this sort of experience this very extensive experience is what allowed me to sort of stand out in my application and got me to where I am as of right now. Yeah.
Thank you, Spencer. That was wonderful. Spencer made us all very proud with not just that presentation, but also all the accomplishments from the last few summers. He won a national award as well in the last summer, and outside of his projects that he's done, he's really showcased what it means to take ownership. And when we're talking about projects and internships, it's not just about designing projects and internships that serve you, but really serve the community. And he went so far as to really create an internship and create opportunities for his peers as well to come and engage with him and finish this app. So we're very proud of Spencer. And so I will now invite Ali Hefner, who has been working with Karen over the last few years on her college admissions. And I'll let Ali introduce herself and where she is now. Spoiler alert, she's not in Hong Kong, and where she's headed and what she has been doing over the last few summers.
Hi everyone, so my name is Ali Hefner and I'm currently studying at United World College in Japan, and for the next 4 years I'll be studying at the Rhode Island School of Design with an intended major in graphic design. So with the help in Baker and Bloom, specifically my sessions with Karen and Trevitt, who is another counselor, they helped me get to this point. So over the summer, as I extensively worked on kind of like perfecting my application, I struggled to find real experiences to support my interest in art. So with the help of Karen, I was suggested the idea of looking for summer internships and just getting real work experience. So last summer, I worked 2 internships at the same time. The first one was Design Trust, and that was also recommended by Karen. And Design Trust is an organization that focuses on funding local artists, not just giving them local recognition, but also international recognition. So I worked there for a week and a half, and from that experience, I learned how to communicate and work with people that were like adults and just work in an office type of area. And not only did I learn like those skills, I also learned more about the Hong Kong art scene and how it's quite prominent, even though it might not seem like it is, and the importance of this organization with connecting art and the local community as well. So this also tied in with my second internship, which was working at Asia Society. And Asia Society is an organization that focuses on the promotion of Asian art, Asian culture, and Asian history. So I worked there for almost a month, and I learned about also, again, like the importance of communication, but this experience was different from working with Design Trust because I worked with people of around the same age range as me. So I was working with college students that also were interested in the area of art. And through working there, I also kind of I was able to understand more about graphic design and expand my skills. So one of the tasks that I was asked to do was to create an interactive brochure that people or the organization would use directed towards kids when they visited the exhibition. And so for this experience, creating art with a specific purpose was a first for me, and Asia Society gave me the opportunity to try and experiment with new ideas and new ways to communicate. And so working there for a month also taught me the importance of asking for feedback, not just from your peers, but also from your supervisors. And even though that feedback may not always be what you want to hear, it is helpful in every way. So from these 2 internships, I also learned the importance of forming good connections with who you work with, in terms of not just becoming friends with them, but also how it can be of good resource in the future for networking. And so all of this helped me to also build my own confidence and narrow my focus into graphic design. So after the 2 internships, I still had difficulty connecting my practical experience with my interest in art and also expressing it well in words. So this was where I worked with Karen quite a bit to kind of pick out the meaningful features of my internship and also tie them to my desires to grow and learn as an artist. So with this help, I was able to organize my thoughts and ideas in just a clearer manner. And so as students, we may have like strong resumes filled with academic, athletic, and extracurricular activities or achievements, but I think we may not realize the value and importance of real work experience in our college application process. So thanks to like Baker and Bloom's advice and to finding internships, not only did I have the chance to take on real responsibilities at these organizations, but also learn a lot about myself and my own interests, which also helped me to strengthen my college application. Yeah.
Thank you, Ali. It's great to see students being able to get real world experience before they even get out of high school and prepare for, really get an idea of what they're going to be studying in college, or even discover that. So I will invite here Hank, Henry Yang, who has been a longtime student at Baker and Bloom, has worked with many of our coaches, many of our teachers, including May, including Karen, including Renee, who's also here, our founder. So I will let Hank introduce himself and say where he is, where he's going, and what he's done over the last few summers.
Thank you, Shireen. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Hank. I'm currently a senior at Phillips Academy Andover, and this fall I'll be heading off to Harvard, and I plan to study economics and statistics. So 2 summers ago, I had the great opportunity, which with the assistance of Baker and Bloom, to work at the Brooklyn Nets, and I've been a huge sports fan my entire life. I swim competitively, but I love watching basketball, American football, soccer, whatever it is. I just love watching it, and I was able to really hone in on this passion, this interest when I was able to intern with the Nets, where I worked under an analyst and studied basketball related income, which is really how the NBA makes money, and all that jazz. And just throughout this entire process, I realized how important statistics in, especially when it comes to sports, and I understood how much power it has and how it can really tell stories. So this kind of 3-week internship that I had with the Nets kind of kickstarted this passion for statistics, and I knew I definitely wanted to do something about that the next summer. But the next summer, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, I had to experience a pandemic-induced lockdown. So I spent my entire junior year in Hong Kong. And with this opportunity, though, I was able to actually found a nonprofit organization called Peer to Peer and Extension Peer to Peer Athletics, where we help underprivileged students receive free e-mentorships and in-person mentorships in terms of their academic education, the athletics, kind of career and university aspirations. And this endeavor extended all the way throughout the summer. So it was very meaningful, and I got to work with a lot of mentees of very ethnic backgrounds, actually. So that was very eye-opening for me. But at the same time, I also participated in the Wharton Sports Business Academy, where I studied different facets of the sports industry and its ever-growing business. So examples like sports betting, esports, kind of broadcasting and TV rights, all these different components of the sports industry. I was able to look into those through the lens of statistics again. So this experience definitely solidified my newfound passion in numbers and using data to tell stories. And with that, I was able to work with May and Karen and Bowie to come up with a data visualization research report where I actually studied the relationship between race and on-court basketball performance between black and white NBA players, and obviously with the help of Baker and Bloom, I was able to produce this report that involved interactive graphs and charts. So you're able to actually study each data point and correspond it to each player. I won't get into the details, but it was very eye-opening, again, for me to actually experience how statistics was able to tell stories and really highlight the nuances that go into the things that you enjoy, which is, in my case, sports or basketball to be specific. And it was a very arduous process, but I think the whole journey of researching data, kind of analyze the findings, was very enriching for myself. So I think just maybe just a small piece of advice, like whatever you do, whatever project that you decide to embark on, like always try to enjoy it and try to definitely do it from something that you love, which is also actually what Baker and Bloom actually tried to promote when I was writing my applications, to always write from the heart and try to frame my essays through something that I enjoyed. So to be more specific, with my love for sports, the frame here was to definitely add cohesion between my many projects, from the Brooklyn Nets all the way to peer to peer with Wharton and with this independent project. So having that frame that is revolving around this passion that you have in sports and it's the academic relative in statistics, that's how I kind of try to structure my application process. So the important thing, I think, just to kind of conclude, is to think of your entire application as your profile, your package. What exactly do you want people to know about you? And then you would essentially use all your experiences to support that thing that you're trying to project out to the world. And with your internships and with everything like that, everything will come together as long as you know what you're trying to illustrate, what you're trying to promote, and it'll just, again, remember to enjoy the process, I guess.
Thank you, Hank. It's always helpful, I think, to hear from students themselves how they, wrote their essays and framed their applications and their summer activities. So I want to give the floor to our founder, Miss Renee Bowie, who is in this call at the time. She will be answering a few questions from parents and also just leaving us with a few wise words.
Actually, I'm going to leave the question answering to our very qualified panelists and Karen and May. But I did want to say hi and just also say that to thank all of our students in particular for taking the time. And I hope that they get to share more after this. I know we said we'd end at 12, but I hope that maybe the students can stay a little longer to take some questions from the audience. That would be great. And I guess just a word to say that at Baker and Bloom, I think what we're really about is preparing kids, is offering a 21st century education and a very personalized experience. And really, in a 21st century education, the role for us as educators and as coaches is really, like Hank was saying, the framing, exposure, asking them questions, helping each student understand themselves better. And in our admissions approach and process, we really try to add value in terms of the what and the how. So in terms of the what, with the projects, we really help them dive deeper into their interests because we have subject experts like May, who's beyond a subject expert. She's like a multidisciplinary, very visionary, inspiring person. So I think that that's something that goes really even beyond a teacher. Very much a mentor. And with the other internships, we're trying to provide real world connections there, right? And someone asked a question, hi you, from Singapore. And so lovely to connect again. See, Baker and Bloom, like the connection doesn't end. I think that's something that also makes us special. We really are like a family. We have kids who graduate and come back and intern with us. So just to answer your question too about that, how we find the internships. I mean, obviously that's kind of what we're here for. So it's our job to go connect with interesting organizations and develop that network of places that are willing to mentor young people. So we're not just about, oh, okay, we know someone here, so we can connect you. We really take the time to cultivate relationships with these places so that there's somebody there who we know will mentor the child, the student, who is actually, obviously a young adult already, and give them some responsibility, explain to them what the field is about, and give them a chance to actually do something to understand a field better. And then on the admission side, we then ask them a lot of questions to prompt more self-reflection, and to connect it to maybe the academic interests, and to continue to just, even as parents, something you can do, which is to ask them questions, to tell them to stretch themselves. And so that's kind of our role, right? To make that meaningful connection, ensure that there is a mentor at the place they're interning at, and afterwards to help them connect that to the admissions process. So I'll just end there. And if there are specific questions for me, I'm happy to do that at the end. But I really want to give more time to the students and our counselor, Karen, and also May. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you, Renee. So I just wanted to ask everybody who's in the room if you want to ask any questions to our students, particularly Spencer, Hank, and Ali. And if you had any questions for May and Karen as well, please feel free to leave that in the chat. So we have a question here from Lily. When did the students start to plan their resumes? So I'll let's start maybe with Ali.
So I started my resume, I think, in the summer of grade 11. So I started quite late, I think, compared to most people. And from there, I just started from there.
I guess this question can be interpreted two ways. Like, when do you start writing your actual resume, which is probably part of the application process you work on with your counselor, but where you actually start building that resume and developing the activities that you're going to put on there. As May said, there's no real right answer, and you would probably do that years before college, and really comes down to the student's interests and what they're pursuing in school. May, if you'd like to add on to that, feel free.
Oh, I mean, I'm happy to jump in as well. It's more, I think the resume is just a physical product, but I think you don't have to structure that, as Ali was saying, until before grade 11. I think that's perfectly fine, but then really taking stock of what you're doing, especially, as you're going from middle school into high school, kind of think about what after school activities students are doing. Obviously don't overdo it, but then you can try looking at, okay, am I spending, how do you balance everything together? I think it's more about ensuring that you're enriching yourself with whatever the student might be interested in. It could be art courses, really having depth in that, or you might have an athlete who plays a lot of tennis and spends 3 to 4 days a week doing that. And then taking that assessment around 9th to 10th grade, which is year 10, year 11 for some students, but seeing, okay, how else can I add to it? There's no activity that you must do, but then colleges do look at how you think about your community, how you think about the school at large. So are you engaging within your school? Are you engaging, with your family? Are you engaging with your community? Ensuring that you are doing that in your own meaningful way will really help you out there.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Karen is saying. It's very similar to what Shireen was mentioning as well. I do want to mention a little bit about timeline of competitions and things like that. So if you want to or if your kid is, or your student is passionate enough on a certain subject and you feel that they will get more rigor or will get more enthusiasm or have more of a purpose behind their project if they join competition, because I do have some students who, once they have a competition deadline in mind, they all of a sudden got focused, right? So in terms of competition, there are a lot of very good ones for around grade 10 and 11. And obviously they are sort of, to be honest, it's the industry game of designing it for college application to a certain aspect, because they need to ensure there's enough applicants for the competition in the first place. So grade 10 and 11 is the time where you really want to look into those if you want to take that route. And then if you really want to prepare for projects and entrepreneurship and internships, those I would say that you have a sort of better timeline, because you can do that earlier or later, and then we'll just try and help you find a connection between the dots. Like for example, with Spencer, when he was doing that internship, we didn't know that later on it would be connecting the dots, right, Spencer, to our project later on, right? So it's just that will come out later on. So because internships and projects are multifaceted. So it's just sort of like, what are you taking out of it to highlight? Are you taking the entrepreneurship, the artistic side, the innovative side, the engineering side, or the humanities side, or something like that? So that allows that connection to be made better. But in terms of competition, yeah, definitely grade 10, 11, yeah, and then even for grade 11, most of the deadlines are in early before December. Yeah, many of the applications. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, May and Karen. If anyone has any other questions, please leave them in the chat now. But just to answer one question that has come up a lot from our parents and people who are interested in planning their summers, is how to find internships and how to get started on projects. Like where do I start? And oftentimes you don't even know what your child might be interested in doing. What we recommend is starting with what they're interested in and booking a 30-minute consultation with us. So we essentially tailor make all of our projects for the students, and we make very personalized recommendations for internships. So as Renee said earlier, every organization that we connect students to is actually invested in helping the student and mentoring the student and making the most of that learning experience. So we strongly recommend, if you are interested, please register
sorry,
for
I
a
do
quick.
want to jump in and highlight a different case in terms of internships, is that you may be not in Hong Kong. And I think that is a big concern, considering that, for example, Ali and Hank are actually not in Hong Kong. If you are able to find a nonprofit local community to volunteer and things that you're passionate about and help with, those are the easiest way of getting a local sort of internship, because nonprofit organizations are always looking for people to help out. However, it may not be structured in a way where you can find a great mentor, or that it can be in a way where you can know like what are the scaffolded skills and learning and things like that I need. So then what we help with, for example, in Hank's example, is that we can help in some ways sort of mentor their mentor. Does that make sense? So that, so while Hank was working with another person on his statistics analysis, then I help guide through and say that, okay, you need this or that, or how will you package this? And then so some of that can happen as well, especially if it's remote.
Yes, so thank you for the question about preparing for competitions and working on projects while not in Hong Kong, as May said, you can connect with organizations in your local area, and we can also connect with them to make sure that the student is making the most out of that opportunity, and aligning with some online coaching that they may get from Baker and Bloom. So another question we have here is for the students, when and how did they realize what they were interested in? So I'll let Hank take this one.
Sorry, could you repeat the question real quickly?
Yes, the question is, when and how did you realize what you were interested in?
I think it took a lot of brainstorming. That's for sure. I remember sitting in the classroom with Karen and Ms. Bowie, obviously, just drawing all over the whiteboard and we essentially just vomited everything out, everything that I could potentially be interested in, and all the things that I'm interested in, and circled the things that really had substance, and the things that I truly put an effort in and are willing to put effort in. So yeah, it will definitely take a lot of self-reflection. So definitely, if the opportunity arises, just free write as much as possible and try to find the things that you truly care about. And when you write from the heart, it will come out eventually. And I also think that like taking advantage of your courses at school can also help a lot. And if you enjoy going to math class every day, then maybe math class is the way to go. If not, then probably don't go for math. If English is the case, and go for English. Like you want to try to pay attention to these type of things as well. For me, I enjoyed my statistics class. That's why I knew that statistics was the way to go for myself. And so yeah, like observing your courses at school can also be a great avenue to finding out what you like.
Thanks, Hank. All right, so last question in the interest of time. Can a grade 6 or 7 student, or I guess a younger secondary student, take on internships, and assuming they're responsible and have keen interest in an area? So maybe Karen, you can take this one.
So I think I actually probably am not too sure we've had students that young take internships. But I think that, you know, for that age, it really is about understanding, you know, what you can potentially add to an organization. I think the youngest we've had, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is still about 14 for some of our more structured internship programs. But I think that for grade 6 or 7, I think learning a skill set might be more important than you know, applying the skills. So you know, kind of accumulate all the things that you can do first. Teach yourself. I mean, I'm always keen on kids learning how to code, but you know, organization skills, like taking stock of what you have, learning some skills, and then I think 14 might be a good age to really start.
And then because we also do helping with boarding school applications and things like that. So this is sort of related to that as well. My take on it is that do more community volunteering instead of calling those internships, call those, you know, immersion experiences, you know, like maybe go and I think one of my really young student was like following elephants, or you know, like or another student was learning about marine animals in Hong Kong, you know, like those things later on can be very fruitful. And the good thing about doing those things at grade 6, 7 is that it builds not only foundational knowledge, as Karen was mentioning, it also makes sure that it looks more real, to be honest, in your application. Sometimes earlier does not mean better, right? it has to be genuine, like I say again and again. So if you have an internship that is earlier than any admissions officer has ever seen, they're going to question you. They're going to like, well, how genuine is this, right? So I think, you know, do that academic, do that interest, do that immersion experiences, and have that well documented. However, take lots of photos, right? Write down your thoughts. Those are how you can then turn that immersion experience summer that is full of interest, full of learning, just document it with photos, because later on, yeah, we will need them when we're connecting the dots.
Okay. Yeah, so just to add on to what May and Karen have said, when it's too early, what we often recommend is just coming up with when it comes to academic preparation and even interest exploration, we recommend doing some one-on-one coaching or joining a class or volunteering locally, finding organizations around you that you can support as a student and really developing that skill set. So one way to do that is to work with Baker and Bloom on a one-on-one basis, and we can help you explore those interests before you start to really deepen them and apply them in real world or project settings. So I want to invite Renee to wrap this up and you know, and speak a little bit and share her her
Well,
final
I
words.
think maybe you can wrap it up, but I will just add to that thought, which is that for younger students, there are summer camps around the world, but it's particularly in the US, where you could get exposure to specific fields, like whether it's forensic science or like becoming a vet or sports. And what the structure programs often offer is interaction with people in the field. So I think that's a good lead up to actually participating in an internship program or being an intern, which is just getting some interaction, real world exposure. Like with our school, Bloom, we actually go on field trips, we invite speakers to interact with the kids. And that's something that parents yourselves, you can arrange. Even if you don't sign up for a structured program. And you can always also arrange for job shadowing for younger students. And of course, as Shireen was saying, like if you come talk to us, we can also figure out ways to expose your child to specific fields. And as Karen was saying, develop skills that are complementary to that field or within that field. And then when they're a little bit older, that will make them good candidates for companies or for people who might want to take them on as interns. Because it's not just about us like connecting you, but also the student themselves need to be promising candidates as interns as well. So I think grade 6, 7, 8 would be great years to build up those skills and exposure to make yourself a viable candidate. I'll turn it back to you guys to wrap up.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining us today. We hope you got something useful out of this talk. I definitely myself did and learned so much about the accomplishments of our speakers and our students as well. We wish you the best of luck planning this summer. Please feel free to reach out to us at info@bnb.edu.hk or visit our website and get in contact if you're interested in planning a project or an internship, or if you're interested in admissions counseling, to reach out, and we'll see you at the next one. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Really like to see so many familiar faces.
Thank you.
Bye.